Well, the project started with the question, what could we make if we printed on clay? And John is a printmaker and a textile designer and a textile manufacturer. Dean's a doctor and a painter and a potter. And I'm an architect and a project manager and a painter. And so we thought we wanted a question that would allow us to each use our individual skills in a way of exploring that collaboratively to see how far we could go with making things that were silk screened with clay.
We were inspired by this idea of Tibetan prayer wheels. Once we had the cylinders, we thought, well, how can we put that together in something that would be like an interactive sculpture that hangs from the wall? And Richie's just been to Tibet quite a bit, so we thought about Tibetan prayer wheels, and that was kind of our inspiration for the format that we displayed the work in the gallery.
John designed the artwork so that it was geometrically interlocking flat, but we figured if you rolled it into a cylinder, then you actually, when you combine those into columns or into grids, by spinning the cylinders, you get this kaleidoscopic effect, which would give you an infinite combination of the graphic.
And one of the pleasant surprises was how much those little negative spaces build up to be the same, and it helps really unify the pieces piece to piece. So it's like they line up in the pattern, but also in the negative space.
Underglaze is usually applied after the clay has been bisque fired, and it's applied with a brush, typically. In our case, we were silk screening, and so we needed to actually print it onto wet clay. It's not dissimilar to a fresco, and that allowed us to actually layer up color and layer up images in a way that set into the clay when it was flat, and then we could roll that into these cylindrical forms that we could combine into the constructions.
One of the difficulties that we had was to get the clay to survive the process, and so we had some problems with cracking, and it took us a while to overcome that, and one of our methods of overcoming it was actually just to make a ton of work. So we lost some in the process, and we ended up with enough work.
You know, like I print a lot on fabric, so that's easy enough to manipulate afterwards. This, you know, the clay has to be, they had to form it very precisely, and we have to put the caps on so they fit in the frames.
Yeah.
So it's not something that was meant to be done that way, I don't think.
So you wouldn't rush into it again?
Oh, I'd do it again in a second.
Definitely, it's one of those situations where you kind of say, the end result is, you know, greater than the sum of the individual parts. We could not have done any of these pieces without every one of us bringing our individual contributions through working in collaboration.
I do not have the patience or technical aptitude that they have, and I never would have been able to, and I wouldn't have thought to do it otherwise. I mean, I wouldn't have done it on my own thing. I want to do this, and I need to find people who do it. It's, you know, we all came together.
We got to have, you know, these work blocks of a week at the time at Richie's place down at the beach, and you really get to know each other in a different way when you're tired and working on something and laughing and brainstorming and building on each other's ideas. So for me, that was the best part of it, I think, and the result is really sort of icing on the cake in a way, that it all did come together and we have a show.